For context, my sister and I used to be incredibly close. We were best friends, always talking, video chatting, or spending time together. Our husbands got along great, my two boys adored her, and we all had a wonderful family dynamic. My sister and I share the same dad but have different moms. She's my only sibling, though she has 6 half-siblings on her mom's side. Growing up, she lived with her mom and visited us every other weekend until she moved in with us full-time at 14. I was 10. Unfortunately, my sister and my mom had a terrible relationship. There was constant fighting, and my sister was miserable. To be fair, my mom wasn't just hard on her. She was difficult with everyone. I ended up moving out at 15 for the same reasons my sister moved out at 18. My mom's behavior was unbearable. After having my first son at 18, I worked on repairing my relationship with my mom. The closer my mom and I became, the more my sister seemed to resent her. My mom also tried using me as a bridge to reconnect with my sister, which made managing separate relationships with each of them very tricky. 3 years ago, my mom invited both of our families over for a game night. It was the first time in years we'd all been in the same room. Tension was high, but I didn't realize until later that it wasn't just my mom creating it. It was between my sister and me. My sister and her husband left after exchanging pleasantries, long before we even got to the games. After that night, my sister pulled away from me entirely. She stopped calling or hanging out and would only occasionally respond to texts. Over time, her responses stopped altogether. For a year, I tried to reach out, begging her to tell me what was wrong or what I could do to fix things. I reminded her that we were family and could work through anything, but I never got an answer. Eventually, I stopped trying. Every day during that time, my kids would ask if their aunt was coming over. They adored her, and her absence was a constant source of pain for all of us. Holidays and family gatherings felt empty without her. I grieved the loss of our relationship deeply, especially because I didn't know why it had ended. Now, 4 years later, my kids don't even remember her. They were so young when she was in our lives that it was easier for me to let them forget rather than let them feel abandoned too. Over time, I've come to terms with the loss. It feels almost like she died. I've accepted that she may never be a part of my life again. Then, out of nowhere, she texted me a few weeks ago saying we should get together soon. I was driving when I saw the message, and it shocked me so much I had to pull over. Instead of feeling excited or relieved like I thought I would, I felt overwhelmed and stressed. Now I'm stuck. I don't know how to proceed or whether I should even let her back into my life. To add, since so many of you are wondering if my mother was hurtful, here is a further explanation of her. She was a good mom in many ways to both of us. She was the only mom my sister really had, and she treated my sister and me equally. However, she was very strict, almost suffocatingly so. My sister came from a household that was not that way. For example, if we got a C on our report cards, we had our phones taken away until the next report card came out. It came down to a rebellion from my sister and a standoff between my mom. My sister was grounded a lot. My mom wouldn't back down, and neither would my sister. It was a standoff of sorts in my household all the time. My sister was smoking Zaza, having intimacy, and sneaking out. My mom was in no way tolerant. With that being said, abuse is a stretch in my opinion. Maybe a little crazy, but hurtful is not the right word. Now for a few comments before the update. Comment 1. I think it's difficult to give the best advice without knowing the true reason behind her disappearance. The comments acting as if there is no possible explanation for it sound extremely emotionally and empathetically removed from a situation like this. I think you should give yourself some time to sit in your feelings about it. You probably spent the last few years grieving your relationship with your sister. If you didn't, you probably are now that this has come back up. Think about how all of it has made you feel, how it's affected your life and the lives of your family. Do you think there is an option to find closure and healing from that? Would that be more likely to come from talking to her again or from leaving that door closed? Are there explanations for her pulling away that you think would be understandable? Are there explanations you think she could give that are unforgivable? Before you decide on having a conversation with her, Have the conversation with yourself first. Sounds like your sister cut contact because you are enabling your emotionally hurtful mother. Gross. Honestly, maybe don't respond for your sister's benefit. Comment 2. Unfortunately, my sister and my mom had a terrible relationship. There was constant fighting, and my sister was miserable. To be fair, my mom wasn't just hard on her, she was difficult with everyone. I ended up moving out at 15 for the same reasons my sister moved out at 18. My mom's behavior was unbearable. After having my first son at 18, I worked on repairing my relationship with my mom. The closer my mom and I became, the more my sister seemed to resent her. My mom also tried using me as a bridge to reconnect with my sister, which made managing separate relationships with each of them very tricky. So you don't see how this might have triggered everything? Your mom was a monster. You had to move out at 15, and then everything is just fine, and you wonder why your sister might feel like she cannot continue being close to you. The game night might have given her an image that branded itself in her mind. Her horrible stepmother and her once closest friend, sister bonding and acting like nothing happened. Maybe this is a stretch, but I feel like you are downplaying your and your mother's role in this. Now, for the update. A couple of weeks later, my sister texts me asking for dinner at our parents' place. Like, what? I mean, this is the woman who went ghost on me for 4 years. So I'm like, okay. But honestly, I just didn't know what to think or feel. I mean, the last time we were all together as a family was that awful game night 3 years ago, and we all know how that ended. But I guess I couldn't just ignore her again. So I agreed. I thought maybe we could finally talk things through, or maybe not. Who knows? The dinner night comes. I get there early to help my mom with the preparations. She's so excited, you guys. Like, ridiculous levels of excitement. It's kind of cute, honestly. She's all like, "Oh, I'm so glad you could come. Do you think you and your sister are okay now?" I'm like, "Yeah, Mom, we're good. Just trying to move on, you know?" So I focus on chopping veggies and stirring sauces. Then my sister and her husband show up. Man, let me tell you, it's like someone sucked out all the air in the room. Her husband doesn't even say hi, just gives me a nod and walks in. The smiles we're all forcing look like they belong to people in a hostage situation. Not a pleasant family dinner. So we're sitting around the table, and my younger brother tries to crack some jokes to lighten the mood. He's the best, honestly. And for a second, I think it's working. My sister even laughs a little. We start reminiscing about our childhood, which is a huge deal considering how tense the living room was. But then, as this always happens, the topics shift and the tension comes back. Our mom starts talking about family vacations, and man, you could cut the awkwardness with a knife. My sister mentions that her husband has been struggling at work, which honestly surprised me. I didn't think they were going to talk about their lives at all. But here we are. So I try to engage my sister like, "Hey, how are you? What are you up to these days?" But her husband jumps in, talking about deadlines and projects. I'm just thinking, dude, this is not what I was asking about. After dinner, we move to the living room for dessert. My sister suggests playing a game. I think, okay, maybe this will help. We'll play some silly game and laugh about how bad we are at it. The game starts, and just when I'm starting to relax, her husband makes a comment about my kids. He says something like, "You need to teach your kids how to be quiet." I was like, "Excuse me? My kids are just kids. They're allowed to be loud and silly." My sister looks uncomfortable, and I can see her tensing up. So of course, my sister pulls him aside for a moment. I try to ignore them, but I can hear them arguing quietly. It's like everything is just going wrong today. The sister comes back looking flustered and tries to brush off the argument. Then, the real chaos begins. Her husband accidentally spills a drink on my shirt, and instead of being like, "Oh my gosh, I'm so sorry," he makes this lame joke about needing to pay more attention. I was just done. My sister looks like she wants to disappear. So we're all sitting there, awkwardly, and just as I think maybe, just maybe, we'll actually talk about everything, her husband interrupts again and demands they leave. He's like, "Come on, we have to go." And my sister just agrees. They gather their things, and I'm left standing in the kitchen like an idiot. A few days later, I get a text from my sister. She sends me a photo of a moving truck and explains they're moving out of state, and it's happening sooner than expected. I'm just like, wow. I reply with a simple, supportive message. To answer a few questions, yes, my sister's husband is the primary reason for the rift and the tension during the dinner. She has acknowledged in the past that he struggles with anger and has been difficult to deal with. The moving photo was unexpected, and she mentioned it was due to him getting a better job offer, which they couldn't refuse. Despite everything, I did wish her well and offered help with the move, but there has been no response. Am I the idiot for defying my father's orders and taking a job that respects me? We met in late 2019 online, had a long-distance relationship for 4 years, with meetings, of course, and last year he came to my city. We lived together for a while, realized we are well compatible, and got married so we can continue our lives together. Well, we lived in my city for a year, and he couldn't find a job because of a diploma problem. He had enough savings, and I was working, so it wasn't a problem short term. We just ended up coming to his country also because of some other issues, plus he wanted to continue graduate studies. Since we arrived a few months ago, he has been working with his father at his store that became very frequented by customers. It's as busy as a convenience store or fast food restaurant, and they sell tools. It's also a mid-sized store, nothing crazy big. They're severely understaffed, and he is often left alone there for 30 minutes at a time to deal with everything by himself. He works from 8 in the morning until 5 in the afternoon every day with a 1-hour break. He's not even paid much considering everything he has to do, less than €700. And his father is treating him like a servant at the job as well, constantly making him run around while 3 other guys, his father included, are literally relaxing, or 2 of them go to take a 1-hour coffee break. Maybe that seems like a good deal to some. My husband doesn't get coffee break benefits, by the way, until I tell you that he doesn't get national holidays off like Christmas, Independence Day, Easter, and such. Today is one of the holidays. Nobody is working except for them, full-time, and their store isn't anything essential either. He also works full-time on Saturdays, so only 1 day off. In total, he has 8 days off a year, 5 for summer and 3 for New Year's, although it can go down to 2 days only sometimes. Now, to add a cherry on top, he had started going to university, so 3 days a week he leaves his job an hour or so early so he can commute to university, 2 hours one way and 2 hours back. He ends up coming home at 11 in the evening. The problem, again, comes from his father, who is many times really rude about it, even though his pressure is the reason my husband is in graduate studies now. He doesn't even have enough time to study. Basically, he doesn't do it unless he has homework or a project that he has to submit, so he does it on the day of. His father is an insane workaholic. He is at the store from 6:30 in the morning until 8 in the evening, 6 in the evening during the cold months. It has only been a few months since we moved here, and it has already drained him so much. He wants to leave his university, but if he doesn't get his graduate degree, it will be difficult to find a better job for him. We live in a town around 2 hours away from the capital where he goes to study. I am still waiting for my visa. The process takes around 4 months. I've been approved. Just the visa paperwork itself is in process, and I am learning their language, so unfortunately, I can't work yet. This has started to take a strain on me too. While I am understanding and I'm trying to make his life easier by helping him around, I'm constantly mad, especially today as he is working when everyone else isn't, and I can't hide my frustration. I keep telling him that there are places that would pay him more or at least the same amount, but they would have better benefits with holidays off. 8 straight hours of work, not 9, and weekends off. And still, he keeps telling me, but what can I do about it? Instead of giving me the green light to help him find something better. He has a degree in political science, so finding work in his field isn't easy at all. Only jobs outside of that are possible. I worked for 3 years at a minimum wage fast food job while I was in university, and I was treated better than he is here. He comes home completely wrecked most of the time. Please, people, does anyone have an idea how I can reason with him? I tried everything, and I'm just tired of it. I've been talking with him for months, but nothing comes out of it. I need some good points to make and such. I tried, but to no avail. Anyone with a similar experience? Thank you. Now for a few comments before the update. Comment 1. See if you can suggest moving closer to the capital. It would put distance between him and his family, probably allow him some different and better job opportunities, and cut down his commute time to his graduate program. How are his savings now? If you can financially swing it, it is your best bet. But he has to be willing to see that this situation is not sustainable. It is hurting both of you. Comment 2. I think you should make him aware that this insane schedule has an impact on your marriage and will weaken it over time. Is this what he wants? When you see how he lets himself be bullied and disrespected like that, it breaks your heart, but it also changes your perception of him, and you do not like what effect this has on your feelings. Scare him a little bit. Now for the update. 3 days after my last update, my husband came home from work and school looking like he just survived a zombie apocalypse. Seriously, the guy was so drained. He could have been the poster child for a sleep deprivation campaign. I noticed this big old bruise on his arm and asked him how he got it. He casually tells me that he dropped a heavy box at the store while trying to lift it alone. Yep, you heard that right. Alone, because they can't seem to hire anyone else to help him out. So I suggested he talk to his dad about hiring more staff. His response? His father would never listen, and he has to keep proving himself. I'm sorry, but what does he have to prove? He's already doing the work of like 5 people by himself. Then he gets this email from the university about an upcoming project. It's one of those group projects where everyone has to work together. Great, right? Except it means even more time commitments. So I suggested he take a day off to focus on his studies. But no, he insists that missing work would lead to more problems with his father. When will this man stand up to his dad? We went to a family dinner at his parents' house that weekend. You know, the usual awkward family gathering where everyone pretends to love each other. During dinner, his dad made a joke about how little his son earns. My husband just laughed it off, but I could feel the tension in the room. I tried to change the subject and talked about my visa process, but then my husband's mom interrupted, saying she hoped we would settle down soon. My husband looked so uncomfortable, avoiding eye contact like it was a plague. After dinner, we moved to the living room for coffee and dessert. So my husband gets this text from a classmate about the project meeting time, and his dad notices the distraction. He scolds him for being rude. I mean, come on, the man is in graduate school. He has to manage his studies. So my husband snaps back, saying he's trying to manage his studies. And just like that, the whole family goes silent. The atmosphere turned heavy. I suggested we leave early to avoid further conflict. On our way home, my husband suddenly stopped talking. It was like someone hit the mute button on him. The next day, he didn't come home for lunch. I called his phone, but he didn't answer. So I decided to check on him at the tool store. When I arrived, the store was busy and he looked completely overwhelmed. I helped him with customers until closing time, and you could see the relief on his face when it was done. After work, he revealed he had a meeting with a potential employer. I encouraged him to consider this new opportunity seriously. A few days later, he got a call from the potential employer offering him an interview. He was so excited, like a kid on Christmas morning. I helped him prepare for the interview, reviewing potential questions and everything. Then the day of the interview comes, and he gets a call from his dad. His father demands he cancel the interview, threatening to cut him off. My husband hangs up, looking conflicted but determined to go through with the interview. After the interview, he learned he got the job, but it requires moving to a different city. Then, his father finds out about the job offer and confronts us. A heated argument ensues, with the father refusing to accept his son's decision. But you know what? My husband finally stood up to his father. He said he would not be controlled anymore. I can't tell you how much I wanted to do a little happy dance when he said that. Edit. My husband and I decided to move to the new city where he got the job. It was a huge change for both of us, but it felt like a fresh start. We found a small apartment, and I got a job offer pretty quickly, which helped with the transition. His new job has been a game changer. He has a normal work schedule, better pay, and actually gets to enjoy his weekends. His employer even offers professional development opportunities, which makes him really happy. We've been adjusting well, and he seems more relaxed than ever. His father hasn't contacted us since the move, and honestly, I think that's for the best. Am I the idiot for dumping my husband after he mocked my culture and family at Thanksgiving? For context, I am Latina, and he is white. We come from very different backgrounds. He was raised in the South, in a predominantly white, upper-middle-class community, and I grew up in a predominantly Hispanic working-class community in Southern California. We met online and have been in a long-distance relationship for almost 3 years now. We've met and even lived together for short periods, but we are still long-distance because I attend university. So on this lovely day, we were on the phone for some time, trying to make conversation, and everything was fine until I asked, "What is the biggest lesson you've learned from me?" I was curious and genuinely wanted to know. He thought about it for a bit and then said, "The Latina stereotype is true," and sort of laughed about it. I was like, "What do you mean?" And he goes, "The chancla throwing, the attitude, the toxica, the generational trauma." I figured he wasn't taking the question seriously, so I brushed it off and asked, "Would you still date Latinas if we broke up?" And suddenly his tone changed. "Nah, I'm done with Latinas." "Really? Why is that?" Him. "They have a lot of issues with their families that reflect on the relationship." At this point, I wasn't sure if he was trying to be funny or if he was being serious, so I asked. Me. "Are you being funny or are you being serious?" "No, I am being serious." I was surprised and didn't know how to respond or what to feel. It felt a little personal, especially because I am the only Hispanic girlfriend he's had, and I've been very open with him about my personal issues with my family. All I could think to say was, "Good to know," to which he kind of chuckled. I wanted to know more, though. "So your ex-girlfriends didn't have generational trauma. Both had significant emotional and mental health problems. Not like Hispanics do. But generational trauma is not just a Hispanic thing. He dated a white girl and an Asian girl before me. Yeah, but Hispanics have more of it." He went on to say that his first girlfriend had a loving father and mother, despite them being divorced, and the second had no generational trauma. I was speechless. So immaturely, I hung up. I later explained to him that he had the opportunity to say anything, but instead he chose to make a joke out of my very serious question, reducing me to negative stereotypes. He said he wasn't talking about me, but I don't know what to believe. He is so unbothered and doesn't think he said anything wrong. More context. I was his first Hispanic friend before I became his girlfriend. Then, a year ago, he worked at a retail store and made a few Hispanic friends there. He made the following comments. "Every Latino person you talk to has the same story," referring to my friends and family. An observation I've made when speaking to people of your culture, his friends. I was deeply hurt in the moment. I even cried about it when I hung up. A part of me feels that it was a personal attack, like he was taking a dig at me. It wouldn't be the first time he's done something like that. A few weeks ago, we actually talked about some comments he made about me and how it bothered me, but I am not sure if this is one of those things. Either way, just knowing he feels this way makes me feel terrible. Now, for a few comments before the update. Comment 1. He knows one Latina woman, but has been able to figure out everything about all of them. That's racism at its fullest. You're young and this is long distance. Get yourself a nice open-minded California boy. Why are you with this guy anyway? Comment 2. Mija, he's discriminatory. I'm Latina too, and my first serious boyfriend was just like this man. This is just the beginning. He grew up sheltered and probably only knows this Latina stereotype from watching George Lopez as a child. You deserve better. Now for the update. A month went by since that awful convo with my boyfriend. Yeah, the one where he made me feel like total crap. That jerk had been blowing up my phone, asking if we could talk. I ignored him. It's not like we had anything to discuss. I was still so pissed off about everything. But then my family planned this big Thanksgiving dinner, and they invited everyone, including my Dumbo of a boyfriend. I was debating if I should even invite him, considering our last chat. My mom was all about it though, saying it would be good for the family. Whatever. I did it to keep the peace. A week before Thanksgiving, my boyfriend texted back all excited saying he'd be there. Ugh, great. Thanksgiving came around and I was super busy in the kitchen trying to make everything perfect. My sister and mom were helping, but I was the one stressing out about it all. My dumb boyfriend showed up late, of course, missing the family prayer and the first course. Typical. He walked in with a bottle of wine, claiming he got stuck in traffic. Really? I introduced him to my family, who welcomed him warmly, but I could tell they were a bit surprised to see him after everything. During dinner, my uncle made some jokes about family dynamics that made my boyfriend super uncomfortable. He even made this dismissive comment about how family gatherings can be too much sometimes. I could feel the tension in the air. My younger cousin asked him about his family traditions, and he gave this vague answer, totally avoiding any details about his own family. My family and I exchanged glances, sensing the awkwardness. Later, while cleaning up, he made a comment about how my family was all loud. He rolled his eyes when I asked him to stop. Honestly, what did he expect? My family was just being themselves. He said he was just being honest, and that started an argument. My dad came over and asked if everything was okay with my boyfriend, and I just nodded, not wanting to ruin the night. As the evening went on, I overheard my boyfriend talking to my brother in the living room. He was saying how he didn't get why we celebrate holidays so extravagantly. What a jerk. After dinner, we all gathered for dessert. The mood was tense, and my boyfriend suggested we skip family games for a movie instead. My family insisted on playing charades, and he joined in reluctantly. During the game, he made fun of my cousin's over-the-top acting, which was totally uncalled for. I decided I needed to confront him about his behavior later that night. After dessert, I led him outside for a private conversation. I asked him what his deal was, and he just brushed it off, saying it was just a joke and that I was overreacting. I was so frustrated. I stormed back inside to find my family enjoying the games. I just wanted to have a good time with them, but he was making it impossible. The following week, I learned he had been bragging to his friends about his Thanksgiving experience. He claimed he tolerated my family for my sake, which made me so mad. I couldn't believe how he was talking about my family. They were nothing but kind to him, and he just crapped all over them. I decided I needed to take action. I was done with him and his crap. I set up a meeting at a local diner, intending to end things once and for all. I thought it would be better to do it in person, even though I was dreading seeing him. During the meeting, I told him I was done with the relationship. He was shocked, trying to convince me to reconsider, but I stood firm. His true colors were just too much for me. Edit. After the breakup, I felt a mix of relief and sadness. I realized I deserved better. I told my family everything, and they were supportive, which helped a lot. My mom suggested focusing on myself for a while, so I'm exploring new hobbies and spending time with friends. It's been a journey. If you liked this video, you'll probably like these too. Also, while you're here, please consider subscribing. It's your support that keeps this channel alive and allows me to make better and longer videos. Have a great day.